trends in MTPL from reinsurance perspective. And I'll try to keep the presentations short and sweet. So the agenda is also, I would say, quite short. We have just two sections. In the first one, I would like to discuss the global trends that we observe in reinsurance. In the second part, I would like to focus more on, purely MTPL and what we observed in this portfolio in this part of the market. So let's start with global reinsurance. What we often mention in different conversations is cycle of the market. We like to speak about soft market or hard market. So let me start a bit about explaining, where we are right now and how it looks like in general. So let me maybe start from the soft market. In the soft market, it's really the buyer who is able to name the price, name terms of and conditions of reinsurance. But of course, it comes with a bit of a pressure on the reinsurance players, because then the price may be not adequate for the risk, and it means that it comes with a bit of cheating. So then the growth of the book, growth of the business has priority over profitability. And of course, it cannot stay like this forever. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side you are. So sooner or later, there is a pain related to the fact that the reinsurance premium is not enough to compensate for the losses that will come. And eventually, this pain will transition into fear of being simply unprofitable in the long term. So this is this first transition from the soft market to hard market. And that's more or less what we experienced in 2023, this 22, 23, this transition period. In the hard market, so here it's 2024, more or less, it's no longer buyer who is able to tell the price. These are reinsurers who are pushing for higher profitability, for increased premiums, increased retentions as well, and certain products may be no longer available. So, frequency covers, aggregate excels, or even free reinstatements are sometimes much harder to obtain. And then, of course, hard market means higher margins, so it's really profitable, and it attracts more players. And with more players entering the market, we have higher competition, and with competition, we again see the softening. And we believe that this renewal, it's again this transition period, but this time from hard to soft market. So it's beginning of this transition. We see the first signs of it. Of course, there are many factors that drive the cycle. Actual and future returns, catastrophe losses, inflation, and so on. But I will not go into too much detail on this. Instead, let's have a look at how it looks like in real numbers. So on this graph, what I present is in dark blue, it's return on equity, and in the light blue, it's cost of equity. So whenever dark blue is above the light one, reinsurers are making profit, and in opposite situation, they are in the red. So as you can see, in the past, it was very volatile, of course, depending on the big catastrophe events or global crisis or COVID-19 in 2020. But in general, if we look at the period from 2016 to 2022, for most of the time, the reinsurers were not making a really good deal. And after that came this, first pain and then fear of losses. So beginning of 2023, we have witnessed a huge increase in return on equity, much higher premiums. And we expect that this situation will continue for a few years looking forward. Looking at European market, let's for a moment focus on this graph on the left-hand side, so combined ratio. So in the past, the curve, which is again dark blue, representing reinsurance, was very high, above 100%. So reinsurers were not making big profits, and that changed. So it's, in other words, what we've seen previously is presented here, but together you can see what's the position of insurance in Europe, depending on the region. But in general, the forecast for the next years is that, there is a change or a shift in the perspective, and the insurance market will try to benefit from this situation as much as possible. So looking forward, our expectation is that we will observe continued softening of the market, and it's definitely a good time for clients to optimize their protection, to think about what perils, what product need to be protected, and think about future growth. And now let me move to the second section, which is MTPL trends. And here, let me start with a bit of analytics background. So what we usually try to do is find the right price for an insurance contract. And to do so, we usually use a method which is called experience rating, which is a pricing based on historical losses. And usually that's a pretty good approach, as long as past is a good representation of the future. But there is one particular situation when it's not as good, and this is when we have some shock in the past. Shock that is making historical observations no longer adequate to represent future price. And we experienced something like this in MTPL business because COVID-19 significantly changed some of the traveling patterns and especially MTPL claims frequency. So we see now that actually traffic volumes are back to what was there before COVID. Of course, during the pandemics, we traveled much less. So there was some decrease in traveling patterns, but now we are back. So the question is, if frequency of MTPL losses is following the same trend? The answer is, I can already tell you that for most of the countries in CEE, it's not like this. But of course, is it the same for Moldova? So according to statistics that we gathered from different local police data sets, we can observe that Czech Republic, Hungary, and Slovakia, they all experience after 2020 completely new level of frequency of MTPL, of traffic accidents. They report data in a different way. So sometimes these are only road accidents with at least one person injured. Sometimes these are all traffic accidents. But what we are looking here is basically trends. And Moldova, from this group, is experiencing the most significant decrease of traffic accident frequency. So comparing to pre-COVID times, it's minus 40%, which is exceptional. And it's definitely a positive conclusion from this data. But of course, this is representing only domestic claims. And reinsurers are not losing sleep because of domestic claims. What's really painful, potentially, is those potentially big green card losses. So I would like to go back to interesting study done by Swiss Re. What's presented here is the same. There is one loss scenario in CEE and other countries where 30-year-old male suffers spinal or head injury. He is 100% disabled and needs a medical attention for the rest of his life. He has 2 kids, was a single earner. So we are looking at different countries and trying to compare what's the size of loss in millions of euro. And we can see that countries at the top of this graph, like UK, Germany, France, they all have the same loss in the range of from 15 to 20, almost 25 million of euro. While CEE countries like Czech Republic, Poland, or Hungary, it's well below, so definitely below 5 million. Therefore, not all green card claims should be treated in the same way. And we need to define what's, I would say, CEE, green card claim, and what's Western Europe green card claim. So looking at green card accidents caused by Moldovan drivers, this is average from the years 2017 to 2024, we can see that 26% of those accidents is actually occurring within CEE region, which means that we won't experience this very high losses of above 10 or 20 million euro. Next on the list are Germany, France, Italy, and Ukraine. So maybe going back to this slide, Germany, France, they are in this range of very high, potentially very high claims. Italy, more on the CEE level. So actually here only, going back here, actually around 20% is really, of accidents is really in the scope of potentially very high losses. But one thing is, regular drivers. Completely other thing that we also try to take a separate look when pricing is truck drivers, because trucks are constantly on the road and they can also cause a very big serious accidents. I haven't found data exactly on truck routes or unloading destinations, but it's correlated to export. So what you can see is that top 5 countries by value of exported goods from Moldova are Romania, Ukraine, and Italy, Turkey, and Czech Republic. So in this case, again, we see that those big heavy trucks are also going only to, or mostly to CEE countries, so are not generating, not causing that big additional exposure. And Romania was, of course, one of the main countries of export, and I want to discuss a bit safety improvements. So what we see is that number of motorways is increasing. On motorways, much less as on rural roads. We experience those very severe accidents, which means that this also improves the general safety on the roads. If you look at road fatalities index in Romania and Moldova, in both cases it's decreasing extremely fast. So we have a very positive trend on less and less fatalities on the road. And it's not only in those countries. When we look across Europe, we will focus on CEE once again. It looks very good. So it's sometimes even close to minus 40% when we compare 2024 to the average before COVID-19. Here, what I'm trying to compare is long-term and short-term dynamics, which presents that in a short term, this pace of improvement is even faster when looking at the CEE, and this is much better than average for European Union. Another interesting observation is about type of vehicle and age groups and how it changes in this perspective. So in general, all vehicle types experience improvement. So we see that there is, the fatalities are decreasing. But what's interesting is when we look at age groups, that actually the age group from 25 to 49 is the one that is benefiting from the biggest decrease of road fatalities. And from the pricing perspective, this is the group that is, most expensive. Of course, every road accident is a tragedy, but if you have this group, when there is, like in the Swiss Re scenario, a single earner with, potentially big long life expectancy, this is much more expensive, much higher loss than if it's 80-year-old person injured. And last but not the least, the cars on the road, each year on average, these are newer cars. It's not happening overnight, but each year we have slightly newer, better cars on the road. So all these new regulations that impose intelligent speed adaptation, line keeping assistance, or blind spot monitoring, they help and they have a real impact on the frequency of accidents. And finally, I just want to mention, very briefly, the other side of each model. So not just frequency, also severity of losses. In the past, we were discussing inflation quite a lot, but nowadays, I would say that inflation is no longer that big topic, because when we look at motor price index, it's already above what we define here as motor claims index. So inflation is no longer that big topic for reinsurers. Of course, each year, if the retention stays at the same level, there is a bit of pressure, and the price can theoretically go up because of that, because there is inflation, but retention is staying at the same level. But it's no longer, that big of an issue. That's why, most of the discussion is about frequency part. And with that, maybe just a final remark that we are not just presenting this to you. We are actively talking to reinsurers. We had meetings with many of them, including Munich Re, Swiss Re, Hanover Re. So they acknowledge this. They also observe the same trends, and we hope to see the impact of these discussions on the pricing in the future. Thank you.